And with that, I would like to welcome everybody. I'm not going to share screen just yet because I would like to begin with an acknowledgement of territory. The Dalalana School of Public Health and also myself, given that I'm working from home in the region, wishes to acknowledge the land on which the University of Toronto operates. And for thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit, who are also very important here in the west side of Toronto that I am living in. Today, this meeting place is still home to the many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on this land. Okay, I'm going to share my screen now so that you can, oh, it looks like we have somebody dialing in. That's fabulous. They won't miss much. I'm going to share my screen and share the presentation in presentation format, which will make it harder for me to see all of you. So please do make use of the chat. And also I know that Eric will flag me if somebody has a question. I'm going to try and keep the presentation fairly brief because I think what's most important on a day like this to a group like yourselves is to have the opportunity to ask questions. And so we begin. I'm going to start with an overview of the program. That's going to be a fairly substantial part of the presentation today. I'm going to talk a little bit about program customization and then the application process, and then we'll move into questions. So I call the Advanced Standing Program the AS version of the MPH Nutrition and Dietetics. It just gets to be a very long name to keep typing out and to take up space on a title and so forth. But this is an important part of our MPH. It is also a very unique part of our MPH. It's unique within the Dalalana School of Public Health, and it is a fairly unique approach to helping those who've been in the field achieve a graduate degree as well outside of the school. We are in partnership with not only our school, obviously, but the U of T Department of Nutritional Sciences. We have worked very closely with them in the development of this program, and we continue to have a very good relationship where our students have access to courses in that department and are invited to research talks and so forth. We are also partners with 3 agencies outside of the university group, and that includes University Health Network for clinical teaching and placement experiences, Compass Group Canada for development of our program in relation to the food provision side of the field, and Toronto Public Health, who finds themselves at the bottom right now, not because they're not important, but because they have been so preoccupied with the pandemic that our involvement with them has been somewhat limited over the past couple of years. And I know we all hope that that time is coming to an end. The prerequisite for our program is that you have a 4-year undergraduate degree in nutrition and food from an accredited program. And those of you who are dietitians will obviously already have that. In the case of the Advanced Standing Program, we also require that you have at least 5 years of experience as a dietitian. And so you can understand a little bit, oops, I didn't intend to do that. I was trying to make my screen look different. Let's see if I can do that again. There we go. Our focus is to really help to train you to the next level of what you need in the profession from a clinical public health model. And this is a term that many people are aware of if they've been involved with the University of Toronto Dalalana School of Public Health, but it's not only us who operate under this principle. And I'd like to share a little bit more about what that means. From our perspective, we see clinical public health as, you may call it an integration of clinical, preventative, and public health intervention. I also think of it as a continuum where any intervention has to acknowledge the importance of other parts of that continuum on the health of the individual or community that is being considered for your work, for your intervention. So we talk about integrating health and social systems, interprofessional education, collaboration within the health field, beyond dietetics, and outside of the health field, to bring together all of these things into a recognition for our students that their field is entirely connected This is important when you're thinking about the delivery of interventions where individuals are involved, because those individuals have come to care from a place where they were in a community, in an environment, in a policy system that caused them to be here, and then they will return to that environment. And how do we maintain the advancements that were made in your care if you're focused on the individual? And if you are focused on that bigger world, planning programs, directing policy change, you have to be aware of the possibility that what you develop may have unintended consequences for the individuals who exist in that community, in that society. And this enlightenment, if you will, is what we help to develop through our program, through our courses. Okay, let's have a little bit of an overview of the program. Everybody's always very interested. Our regular Nutrition and Dietetics MPH requires 10 credits. We call them full credit equivalents, or FCEs. An advanced standing program, Saturday morning, only requires 5 credits. And that is a recognition of the fact that you come to the program with a significant amount of career experience. So there are certain courses that are required for all MPH students, such as Introduction to Public Health Sciences, a policy course at the graduate level, such as Public Health Policy, or a cousin to it, Patient-Related Healthcare and Public Policy in Canada. You are required to have research methods courses, one in quantitative, and I'm just trying to check here. All right. Yes, you are required to have a qualitative course as well. Usually I put those two beside each other. And then we do encourage that you have a public health nutrition focus as well, because this is, after all, a Master's of Public Health, and you are, after all, dietitians. So there is one course that's required in the population health area of public health nutrition, and you can see a series of possibilities there, as well as one in nutrition science. After that, you are required as well to have a practicum. All MPH degrees require a practicum. And that practicum, for those of you in the advanced standing program, is half of the length of a practicum required for a 2-year MPH. So 4 weeks at a minimum. For those who are trying something new and doing a practicum in an environment that is not like the one that you came from in your career, I recommend that you use some elective space and give yourself 8 weeks, because sometimes in 4 weeks, it's very difficult to wrap your head around a new environment, a new set of stakeholders, a new series of problems, and then deliver something that shows what you can offer as a dietitian and proves that to yourself and your agency that you're working with. And speaking about those electives, that accounts for 1.5 credit equivalents. Usually that relates to 3 half courses, and every 4 weeks in practicum counts as a half a course. So for many people, this is achievable in the course of 1 academic year, starting in September and usually wrapping up by June. Sometimes, depending on the location that you'd like to be placed in, it might take up more of the summer. That's great if you can take a leave of absence, for example, from work, or if you are making a shift in your career. However, we also recognize that many of the students who come to us in an advanced standing capacity are looking for a way to increase their credentials without having to give up the work that is sustaining their life. And so part-time is also a significant option for many of our advanced standing students. So when you get here, we deliver a rigorous curriculum. You have world-class researchers and policymakers and practitioners delivering courses across the breadth of the subject matter that you need to study while you're in the program. There will be, as I mentioned, a practicum opportunity for you to either deepen your experience in your particular area of practice, perhaps even in the organization that you currently work, or to try something very new and take a chance of stepping outside of the area that you have practiced in traditionally. Our plan for the people who come to us for an advanced standing degree is to help you take that next step up into leadership roles within the profession and within the stream of the profession that you work. Our programs at both the 2-year level and at the advanced standing level can be customized. It is not as easy for the advanced standing students to customize their programs because you don't have as much time. But a number of our students who are doing the program on a part-time basis have found that they can pace in courses that would be related to collaborative specializations, and they have been successful in applying to those collaborative specializations in areas including women's health, or health policy, or addictions and mental health, or Indigenous health. A number of these collaborative specializations exist for MPH students in the nutrition and dietetics area. And what it does is it allows you to take 1 or 2 extra courses that help you to focus from an academic point of view, along with taking a placement in an environment that provides you deeper experience in that area. This, by the way, I'm looking at my notes, requires also it allows you to talk about this on your resume, because this is not just a program customization, it is fully transcripted. And so for that reason, if you wish to highlight it as part of your MPH on your resume, it gives you an automatic billboard about an area that you're much more experienced than the average person in. And beyond that, you also get the opportunity to meet with some great people to have as references or potential job leads once you finished your program. Okay, we seem to be moving right along through this. Our application process requires that you provide us all transcripts from all of your undergraduate or post-high school work. For some of you, that might be quite considerable. And even if that means you took an art history program through OCAD, for example, we still need to see that as part of the transcripts you submit with your application. We look for a mid-B average in your final year of study. And the reason that we say that is because that's a requirement of the School of Graduate Studies. That's not to say that if a really fabulous candidate who didn't have all the best grades in their final year of university study came to us, we wouldn't find a way to work through that with the School of Graduate Studies. But this is the general standard that School of Graduate Studies has, because they want to ensure that people who enter a graduate program at U of T are going to succeed. And they use that as a proxy for your ability to focus on study and deliver high quality work. We all know that that's not the only way to determine that, but that is their rationale for this. We have a letter of intent that we ask you to write so that we can hear in your own words what makes this program right for you, what makes it something that would enhance the direction that you would like to go in your career and where you would like to contribute. So there are questions that are given to structure this letter of intent, and you have up to 600 words to express that to us. We ask for a CV, which we look at in great detail. It's not just a checkbox. We really do want to understand the background that you bring to the beginning of your graduate study or the next graduate degree that you do. And we also have a requirement for reference letters. There are supposed to be 2. They do not have to be academic references. So it's important to say that out loud, because a lot of people are concerned that applying to an academic institution, you need to have professors who are your references. And while that might be appropriate, it might be helpful. They would potentially be able to attest to your ability to succeed in an academic environment. They may also not know you that well. They may not understand what has contributed to your career development so far. And so we're very happy to see professional references. We are happy to even see 2 professional references, as long as they really know you well and can speak to your impact in the field and your abilities with respect to higher education. You'll notice that the deadline for advanced standing in red is sooner than our regular program. And so we call that to your attention so that you can be thinking about how you can put that application together in time if you're interested in applying to us for next year for September admission. The reason that we have those deadlines a little bit earlier for you is that we review advanced standing applications earlier than our regular program. We usually get a lot of applications to our regular program, and we don't want you and your applications to get lost in that shuffle. Plus, we recognize that you probably have some significant decisions to make if you're starting an academic program and taking a different approach to your career in the next 12 months. And so you may need a little bit of extra time as well to hear that that's happening and to make sure that you're in a position that it won't be completely disruptive. So we do have take those applications early. We review them in January, and if we're going to have interviews, which we will sometimes do in the case where there are candidates that we want to explore a little further for advanced standing, we'll be doing that by late January. The communication that we would like to offer you a position begins in early February, and you'd have, again, once the verbal agreements are in place, a letter would be sent to you with a requirement for 2 weeks before you accept it or decide that you're not going to enter in September. Okay, so again, the application deadline is there, November 26th, just over a month away. And we have some websites that you may want to check if you're interested in applying to us. A lot of the information I presented today is on the Nutrition and Dietetics Advanced Standing page. So you're welcome to go there and explore it further. And then the application process website is there as well, so that you can begin that process if you know that this is the program for you and you'd like to apply for admission. The whole process is online now. So those of us who remember a day and time when you had to submit things in hard copy, it does take a little bit of a mind bend to get the application portal set up to work with you, but it doesn't, it's not hard. And it means that all of your information can be transmitted fairly instantly once you have it together. Okay, I'm going to stop now because I have a feeling that this is the most important part of our session. And I'm going to stop the sharing so I can see you a little better. And I see we already have something in the chat. Eric has put the websites in the chat. So this is the great time for me to get to know you a little bit better, for Eric as well as our program associate director. I didn't even introduce myself. I just remembered that. But I'd love to hear from you. So please feel free to either type into the chat or ask a question.
I'll go ahead.
Hi, Michelle.
My name's Michelle. I had a couple of questions. So I'm interested in part-time. So if you can speak a little bit about that in terms of the application process, whether you kind of click that off. And then the other piece is I've been in industry for probably close to 20 years. So I'm now looking at sort of taking a different direction with everything that's been going on in public health the last couple of years. It's really kind of piqued my interest. Do you see that as being sort of a positive thing or perhaps a negative thing going into a program without, if I'm competing against clinical and public health dietitians, seeking entry to the program?
Okay, well, let me address the easy question first. And that's part-time is basically just you click a selection of either full-time or part-time in the application process. What that entails once you're accepted into the program is that you would take no more than 2 courses in a term. And so it means that you would have, I believe it's up to 6 years to finish your degree, so that those courses can be spread out to be paced in with the work that you're doing. And your practicum, we would have to talk about the best way to handle that, because usually it's 4 weeks continuously full time, but that is not absolute. And really it comes down to 4 weeks, 20 days, 160 hours as a requirement. So we may be able to work out something that would allow you to do that part-time as well. We would have a bigger talk about that depending on the type of experience you'd be looking for once you get to that stage. Okay, so the bigger question. I myself have had a lot of experience in the food industry, and I have come back to teaching in the public health stream, but also academics. I don't think that it's a disadvantage in any way. I personally very much see industry work for people who have a dietetic background as being population health. I mean, that's the role that we do, unless you've completely shifted gears and gone into finance or gone into logistics. The work that you are doing is trying to ensure that the food supply is delivered to people in a way that enables their healthy consumption, that it's safe when it arrives to them, that it is consistent with food regulations in our country, that our trade practices are fair with other countries, so that as we share goods across borders, they're going to support the well-being of others. You are providing knowledge translation quite often in those industry roles. I really feel that this is a significant population health part of the field. And if you are interested in shifting gears and looking at a different way to practice in that manner, I don't think that that's crazy at all. It just gives you a very different lens on the environment than people who have worked more in the government sector or people who've worked more in the clinical stream. So I feel like, all of these different aspects of dietetic practice that you bring to the classes that you'll be attending are a way to engage in very rich discussions about the way that we can deliver good health to as many people as possible.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Hi, this is Danielle. Are you able to hear me now? I was able to call in.
Hi, Danielle. Is it Danielle
Hi.
M? Because we still,
Yes,
I think,
Danielle
okay.
Mesa.
Okay, we still
It's my
have
phone
you.
number and my
All
and
right.
my name is also attached. I just had a question. So I'd also be interested in the part-time as well. I'm currently an ICU dietitian, and I've been working for about 4.5 years. So I wouldn't be applying this year. It would most likely be next year once I've hit the 5-year mark.
Okay.
Well,
I have a point about that, actually. We
go
want to make sure that you've had the 5 years by the point that you enter the process or enter the program. So if you're at 4.5 years now, by the time the application process is completed and you begin the program, you would meet the 5-year requirement.
Okay, I see. So actually, I just wanted to clarify something that was on your slide. So you had November 26, 2019 there. Did you mean 2021?
Yes, sorry. Good catch.
Okay, it's okay. I just wanted to make sure November 26 was
Yeah,
the date
it's
that you were
actually this
thinking of.
year's date, unfortunately, not this year's year.
Okay. No
Obviously, I
problem.
haven't updated that in a while.
It's okay. Okay, so in that case, that was my first question. Is I'm at roughly the 4.5-year mark. So I guess technically, yes, next year would be the 5-year. My other question was in terms of the placement. So you had said 4 weeks would be required. So that doesn't have to be consistent, then that can be broken up over my time completing the program.
Not exactly. So we do need
Okay.
you to register in a course for that practicum that would be done in one term,
Okay.
ideally. So that 4 weeks could be, say, any term really, depending on how you were approaching the program. But you've usually got a 3 to 4 month term. Summer terms are a little bit longer that you could stretch that placement out. Now, the reason that I'm cautious about breaking it up too much is because we want the learning to be consistent and building on itself. So if you're doing a 4-week placement and you want to do it part-time, we would highly recommend that it's at least a couple of days a week worth of time in that environment. And I'm being careful how I say this, because some people will take on a consulting style project that would be approximately 160 hours worth of consulting in that term. Other people will work in an environment where they're at a community health center for 2 days a week, performing something that is a stretch from what they normally do. Other people will take on a stretch project in their homework environment. So if you're coming from an environment that's, we had one student a few years back who was working for a community health center and was asked in the context of that job to do an evaluation project, which took up the equivalent of about 2 days a week of their time for the stretch that would be one term. So there's different ways to approach it that can be consistent with you continuing to be employed, but we can't have it stretched so that it's 1 week this term and then another week a different term. That doesn't work.
Okay, no problem. Thanks for clarifying.
Any other questions?
I think there's a question in the chat as well.
See that? Thank you very much.
Yeah, Michelle has a question about tuition costs and scholarship. And then I'm reading Jenna's message.
Yeah, okay. So I wish I could answer the questions about things that are as logistically oriented as that. The tuition costs are available online somewhere. And when I was doing this session last week for the 2-year students, somebody from the grad office indicated that there was, they gave a website that you could check to see what the tuition costs are this year. The full program tuition, it runs about $13,000 a year for full time. And of course, you're only doing the equivalent of 1 year of that, but part-time tuition isn't quite half. So I think it would be best to direct you to that. I think Eric might be looking for that site right now so that he can post in the chat what the tuition costs look like. It is different. There are a couple things I want to talk to you about with respect to tuition, though. Tuition for graduate programs is not done in the same way. It's not done on a per course basis. So when you pay your tuition for the year, you're paying tuition for September right through until August of the following year. And as a part-time student, you're enabled to take up to 2 courses per term with that amount of tuition. But you don't have to. You can take 1. They don't have to be your required courses. You could take electives. There's a way to mix it up a bit. So your tuition reflects the cost for being in the program on an either part-time or full-time basis from September all the way through to August of that following year. And that's important because I usually have a lot of people asking about the cost of summer courses, and it's not quite the same design at all. Now, funding. That's a really good question. We don't specifically have scholarships for our advanced standing students. And at this moment, I can't even say whether we have, there are some stipends. I know that there are bursaries and things available for all students. I don't know whether even all of the stipends and so forth that's available to our 2-year students are available to you. That is something that I feel like I need to check on in order to be able to answer the question more fully. The quick answer for today is our advanced standing students don't get the benefit of as much funding even as our regular 2-year students. Having said that, the Nutrition and Dietetics program is not nearly as well funded as some of the others that have benefited from large endowments. So a lot of it is very self-funded. Okay, I see Jenna is a clinical dietitian for 10 years at this point, and various electives and types of practicum placements. Okay, so our electives can be anything that moves you within the graduate studies programs of U of T. Now, we don't always have permission for our students to engage in all graduate courses across campus. For example, Rotman School of Management does not play very well with other schools. They're rather closed, but I'm trying to knock that door down. We have a lot of courses within Dalalana School of Public Health that allow you to explore everything from public health policy, evaluation, ethics, the process of counseling and being involved in helping to shape behavior change. There's loads of courses like that available through Dalalana that are not a required part of our program. The Department of Nutrition Science also offers courses. Some of them are included in our required buckets. Like you could take one of these 4 courses to satisfy this requirement. But if you wanted to, you could take more of those courses, and some of them would be elective courses. So some of those titles appear on that chart. There are also students who get involved in courses that are outside of these 2 schools. So we regularly have students doing studies at OISE for Institute of Studies and Education. We have, these are all part of U of T. The School of Social Work also has a good sharing process, so they're happy to see our students join their courses. I've even had students in your shoes take courses at faculties such as music, or history, where they feel it makes sense in the context of their degree. So I'd like to encourage you to think as broadly as you can about elective courses where you feel it's going to be an advantage or an area that would enhance your work. We can do a lot. We just have to fill out a few papers, and I am very happy to see breadth in our students' programs. So I haven't yet said to a student, you shouldn't take this course. As for practicum, the practicum placements can be almost anything that you feel enhances dietetic practice for you. And I'm using those words carefully. I remember asking these kinds of questions about what sort of continuing education activities could be appropriate for my self-directed learning tool for the College of Dietitians of Ontario. And I was told that anything you feel would enhance your practice as a dietitian would qualify. And if you were a dietitian involved in counseling race car drivers about their physical needs while they're in the stress of a race, you might need to take a course in race car driving so that you've got a better appreciation for that. So that said, the practicum can be a lot of different things. And we have students who do what you might expect, where they participate with one of our partners in some kind of an advanced learning way. So they may develop a summary of best practices in an area for a hospital or for a health association like Heart and Stroke or something like that. We may have people who get involved in the delivery of programs at a community level or the evaluation of those programs in collaboration with somebody like Toronto Public Libraries or Toronto Public Health, or a center within the university for child studies, for example, the Lawson Center. We may have people who try to take on a government role. They may not have done that before, and they would like to see what it's like to work in with the Ontario Ministry of Health or with Health Canada to do a policy evaluation or do a stakeholder consultation process for them. There are all kinds of knowledge translation projects that can be done for various agencies, for school boards, for all kinds of things. We had one student who was involved in working with George Brown College, for example, to develop nutrition education for their chef training program. Trying to think of all the neat things that our people have done in the past. A lot of times, students in your position come to us with an idea of something that they would like to do. So we had one student who wanted to engage in an independent practice when she was finished the program, and she had a colleague who was planning to move on and not be a consultant anymore, but was going to need somebody to take over their practice afterwards. And so their practicum was essentially them becoming aware of the business side and working with this dietitian whose practice eventually they took over to learn how it is to run their own business. And we developed a practicum around that. And in the end, that student is actually running that business today. So there's lots of different things. In one case, I remember a student working with a PR firm. You guys don't need to achieve dietetic competencies. You need to stretch your understanding of the field. And so this student became involved with a PR firm and worked with a client who was trying to share information about pulses. And they were involved in thinking about advertising and social media and other things. There are so many different kinds of projects that you could do. But what we ask from you is that it be something that challenges you, stretches you into a new area, and builds on the kind of work you've done in the past, but the education you're getting from our program as well. I hope that answers the question, Jen, and let me know if there's more. Okay, and I see Eric has put in the fee information. Are there other questions that you have?
If you're part-time, is everything in person or is it hybrid at this point?
Okay, so this is the big scary question that we all have. So I'm going to start with the official story. The University of Toronto is an in-person school, and at this time has not approved any of these programs for online delivery. However, we've had to deliver all of our programs online for almost 2 years now, so we're getting much more efficient and well-trained at it. Having said that, looking at the fact that the pandemic seems to be winding up a little bit and so forth, we are being encouraged to move back towards in-person delivery of our courses. And the next step is Yet we see how valuable it has been for some of our students to be able to participate remotely. And so all of us are going to be spending some time in the next few months to a year figuring out how to move to hybrid or make some courses remote as that suits our program and our learners. We have to go through a curriculum approval process because it's considered a major change to your course delivery or your curriculum if you're going to a system that is not in person. And so there is a process behind it that we will have to do if we would like in the future for our courses to remain more flexible in their delivery approach. My argument, and Eric and I have talked about this, is that for students in your position especially, it makes a lot of sense for our courses to be set up in a way that would enable you to participate remotely. We are going to need to figure out what that means because we can choose to offer a hybrid delivery system for courses that we lead. But we can't choose to offer hybrid delivery system for courses like Introduction to Public Health Sciences or the Public Health Policy course or the Quantitative or Qualitative Methods course. That is outside of our circle of control. So we would need to negotiate with those instructors to see if it's possible and then to help prepare those curriculum proposals that would allow those courses to become potentially available in a hybrid format, encourage them to do it on a regular basis. And then we would have to have our program approved as eligible for delivery in either way on an ongoing basis. I'm not saying it's impossible. And with the experience we've had in the past couple of years, it's really opened our eyes to how achievable it can be. But it's not the way that U of T operates today. So it probably means that in the near term, like even next year, we're going to be in a position where our courses would have to be done in person. I do know people who have done parts of our program where they have chosen to take a leave of absence and have come and been on campus for 10 months or 8 months, and then they've gone to a placement that takes them closer to home and work again. I also know people who have elected to do the program part-time and have planned to come to Toronto for 1 day a week so that they can participate in the courses that they can fit into Monday, for example, or something similar, where tutorials or group work might be able to be done online or through Zoom. But overall, right now, we don't have a better mechanism than that. So while I hope that we can move in that direction, and I see Eric nodding too, I don't think that we can promise that we're going to get there in time for when this program might be important for you.
Thank you for that.
Okay. Any other questions? And outside of reinforcing that our application date is actually in 2021, November 26th, I'm looking at the list of questions we often get asked, and I think we've actually touched on all of them. So we don't need to hold you here if you don't have more questions, but I'm happy to stay, of course, if there's other things that you'd like to explore.
And you're more than welcome to email me and or Perrette as you prepare your application or you consider the application process. But it is coming soon. The deadline is coming soon.
Thank you for all of the information today. I really appreciate it.
No worries. We found that having a session that's specific for the advanced standing applicants is important because sometimes your questions can get lost in among the many, many questions about completing the dietetic practical training that come from our 2-year program.
Mm-hmm.
How many years has this program been running, the advanced standing one?
Well, that's a great question. I think we're probably at about 10 years right now. I'd have to go back and look in the records, but there was a hiatus in the middle. So it had been offered for a few years, and then from about 2016, 17 into 2019, 18, maybe 2018, we didn't offer the program. The reason was because we had gone through some significant change with our 2-year program. And when we looked at the advanced standing program, we realized that it wasn't in step with it anymore. So, for example, in that time, since the beginning of the advanced standing program, it was originally set up as a way to allow people who were working in public health but weren't master's trained to get the master's training they need to become public health nutritionists in Ontario. And our regular 2-year program had really taken on a more complete dietetic practical training aspect to it since the development of the advanced standing program. And so we were training dietitians who were going to go into every area of the field. And we realized in sort of the mid-teens that our advanced standing program wasn't keeping stretch with the allowance of dietitians from various walks of the field to come in and enhance their credentials to take on more leadership in their own areas of the field. So we made some changes to give it that flexibility so that it would be more appropriate. And now it's been running in that fashion. I think this is our 3rd intake for students in this revised, more expansive program.
Okay, I hadn't heard of it before. I'll be honest, the only reason I'm able to consider this program is because of the ability to do it part-time. I've always wanted to do it, but I, it wasn't going to leave work to do it, take it on at full-time. So I'm happy to hear that you have the part-time option available.
Yeah, and I think that's extremely important for this program especially. We find that it's more difficult to offer our dietetic training program as a part-time program and make sure that everybody gets the amount of hours in practical training that they require for college registration. But for yourselves, this is a way to flexibly allow you to explore the field and stretch your application of your skills without necessarily taking you away from the life that you're trying to sustain.
Yes, very much so.
Okay. Well, if there are no more questions, I'll call the meeting to a close. As Eric has said, we welcome you to make inquiries as you're considering further going through the process of application. We look forward to seeing some applications from you. It's always wonderful to see the great experiences that our advanced standing students bring to the program and the experiences that you can share in the classroom. So fingers crossed, we'll see a bunch of you.
Thank you again.
Thank you for coming. Have a good rest of the weekend.
Take care.